Yo, what is going on, everybody? My name is Jack PSD, and today I'm going to be explaining how I made the MONTAGEM LAGRIMA cover art for MXZI, also known as MXZI and JXNDRO. Alright, first thing you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to open up Blender. I have a download link in the description for it. It's absolutely free, but that's what you're going to need. So first thing we're going to do here is you're going to use the gyrosphere up here. This is how you're going to look around, or you can just click the letter here and it'll set you to the y-axis. I'm going to add in my camera, and how I move it is you just hit the letter G and the letter Z to move it on the Z, or X to move it on the X, or Y to move it forward and backwards. You can't see it because I'm on Y, but here it is on the y-axis. So I'm going to move it back just a little bit, and we're going to go into camera view, and you can also use those same shortcuts, G and Z, or G and Y, or G and X while in camera view, which is really nice. So you hit Shift A, that's going to add in your plane here, and this is kind of just going to add a ground to our 3D workspace. And then next up, we're going to add in our bike. So how I found the bike is you just go to sketchfab.com. I just typed in vintage bike and it seemed to work out great. There's a bunch of different models you could pick from. So let me pull my bike in here real quick and then we can go from there. Okay, so now that I have my bike in here, this is about where I want the angle to be at. I'm going to move it just a little bit closer to the camera, add some angling in it. Great. And we're going to go into render view here and see how it looks. Right now we're in Eevee, but we want to render everything out in cycles. So I switch it to cycles and switch this here to GPU, because your GPU is always more powerful than your CPU, especially when it comes to 3D softwares. And I set my sampling to 1024 and my noise threshold to 1. That's just going to render everything out quicker. And also, if you're looking to create it in a cover art size, we're going to set this to 2000 by 2000, and we'll adjust that to 3000 by 3000 in Photoshop later. So now that we have our bike in here, I'm going to get it rotated up to be just about where I want it. And then for the camera, we're going to do some funky stuff with this camera here. We're going to switch our camera type. That's this green button down here. I'm going to switch this to panoramic. So it's going to give it like this weird trippy fisheye lens. And then we're going to zoom these all into 15 and 360. And using the same shortcuts we learned earlier about the G and Y, we are going to use again on rotate. So rotate is you click the letter R and you click the axis you want to rotate on. So this is the X, this is the Y, and this is the Z. It looks trippy because we are in the fisheye lens, but yeah. So now you can kind of see it coming together. If you've seen the cover art or you have the cover art, I'll pull it up. Here it is. You can kind of see the bike coming together and the scene coming together. Next up, we're going to add in our house. So in the background of the cover art, I put the buyer's house, or just like a cabin that looked like the buyer's house. So let me get this added in. Same method on what we did with the bike. We're just going to go to sketchfab.com, type in townhome, or just a house in general, and see what comes up. Pick your favorite one. Doesn't have to be the exact same one that I used, but yeah, I'll meet y'all when you're back from Sketchfab. Okay, so now that we have our house added in, we're gonna get the angling on it done. And I don't really want these pillars underneath it. Only iffy thing that I had with this Sketchfab model here. What we're gonna do is just rotate it around to where it just sits on the floor. Use our same RX, RY, RZ to get this looking how I want it to be. Let's move it up just a little closer so we can see what we're doing here. And I'm gonna just keep rotating it and finick around with it until you get your desired look. I mean, I'm remaking the cover art. This isn't exactly like T for T how I did it. It's gonna be as close as possible. I'm gonna show you guys how I use these tools to get that result, so you guys can try it out too. All right, so this is about the angle that we want for our house here. Next up, we're gonna add in our big mind flayer character. Now there is a couple good ones on Sketchfab as well, so I just downloaded one of them and added him in. So here is our Mind Flayer guy. We have him added in. We want to add him in just a bit big and ominous. So right now what we're doing in Blender is we're compositing everything together into how we want it to look, right? So when we can worry about lighting, textures, everything like that in a minute. How I usually do it is I get the base structure of everything done and down and figured out like where I want to put the text, where am I going to put the creatures at, or in this case the bike, etc. So that's what I'm doing now. We'll figure out text and lighting in a minute. So yeah, now that we have our Mind Flayer added in, I'm gonna start working on the forest. Now for the forests, there is a bunch of different ways to get cool forests in Blender, but the way that works for me most is you guessed it, Sketchfab. Sketchfab is like my go-to for models. There's a bunch of free options, there's a bunch of paid options. If you want nicer materials or nicer models in general, I do recommend getting the paid ones, especially if you're using them for clients to purchase, commission to create something for somebody. It's always better to use a paid model. Okay, so once you get your forest added in, we're gonna do the same thing that we did earlier with the house, and we're just gonna rotate it around. You can rotate it quickly by hitting R twice on your keyboard. Just hit RR, and you can rotate it like so. Or if you need a little more precision than that, just hit the R and the X like we talked about prior with moving things being G and X. And yeah, that looks to be a nice forest here. All I did was hit Shift D, and that added in a bit more trees for us to mess with. Duplicated our already built trees. I'm going to just add in a few more, add in a little bit more ambience to it. And now for this, I'm going to add in a sunlight so we can see where our light is coming from. And I want to see some shadows coming in from those trees. Just about like that. And now these shadows in this area here that you're seeing underneath the tire, that is coming from these back trees here. These trees here, because the sunlight is coming in from this angle. It's hitting the top of the trees, displaying the shadow on the ground there, and that's how you get that to look like that. Alrighty, next up we're going to add in our grass. Now this grass plugin that I used for my grass is called Vegetation Scatter, or Veggie Scatter, something like that. I'll leave it linked in the description for you guys to enjoy. But all you have to do is literally that. That's all you do. Is Shift A and add in a plane and connect the plugin, and you're good to go. So we have our grass here. I'm gonna just scale up my grass just a little bit, and we're gonna move it on the G and the X axis and rotate it around a bit just to get that perfect angle for what I want. And if you want to move the grass or have the grass do something that it's not, so like fill in the density or make it taller, you can do that with that same plugin. You just mess around with the sliders within the plugin, and we're gonna randomize it just a little bit. I want a little bit more grass in it than we had prior, so something like this should be good. Now for the ground, we don't want our ground to be that ugly white, so what I did here is I just added in another simple plane, and before you scale it, you're gonna download this plugin called Blender Kit, and they have unlimited materials, pretty much unlimited, like it's kind of crazy. So we're just gonna type in dirt, and my preferred dirt to use is it's this one here. It adds in a little bit of wetness, but there's also a bit of displacement to it, and it just adds in that hint of realism. And now let's scale it up once we have our texture ready to go, and then we're gonna just move it up a little bit, and now we're good to go. Also, I'm gonna move our sunlight down again. Let's hide these panels here so we can see where our sunlight is here. Alrighty, so I'm gonna grab our sun and hit double R again to rotate it again. And I just want a little bit of shadow on that tire, like that. Great. Alrighty, next up, we're gonna focus in on our lighting. So how you add in a light, you're just gonna hit Shift A. And for this one here, I'm gonna use the point light. And we're gonna bring this back up here so we can see where our light is. And we're gonna move it around, and you could pretty much put the light wherever you want. just make it cinematic or make it look as cool as you'd like it to look, using the same principles with the moving. So I think right about there looks good. I want a little bit of flicker coming off of the tire, so when we use our lens glare, our compositor later on, it'll shine off the bike a bit more than what we have now. So we've got our 2-point lights in here. This is really showing off the bike. We're mainly reading this bike as like a product render. And yeah, so right about here is where I want it to be. Next up, I'm gonna add in some more foliage. I'm gonna add in more dead trees. So I'll come back once I have my trees. You guys can find these on Sketchfab. All you do is just add them in. Alrighty, so now that we have our trees in here, we can move them around, and I want them to just be around him. We don't really need any in our scene, like we don't want that here. So we're gonna move them there, and we can move these back just a tiny bit. It's really just messing around with it, finding something that fits your scene best. And you don't want a tree, you know, to go through where a tree shouldn't go. Like a tree should not be going through a house like that. So we're gonna move it back like this here, and we're gonna move it back just a tiny bit there, and then I'm gonna add in a little bit of rotation to it so we can add some more of that in there. Next up, I want to move around our Mind Flayer a bit more. He is cool, but I want him to be just a little bit more ominous. So we're gonna do something like this, rotate him around, and boom, that's just about how I want him to be. Next up, we're gonna add in our fog. Now this fog add-on, it's like, I think it's like $8, but I use it on every single project ever. So I hit Shift A, I'm gonna add in a cube here. I'm gonna click on our cube, and it's literally called Easy Fog. It created it into this, and you can rotate it around, find your preferred fog, and you can change the color of it to, you guessed it, red. So now that we have our fog all situated, sorted out, I'm gonna just keep rotating it around until I find one that really fits my scene. I want there to be a big depth. You can tell that there's depth between the bike and the house. And then also I'm gonna add in another fog by hitting Shift D, G, and Y, and to move it on the Y axis. And then I'm gonna just scale it up to add in more fog, because we want our Mind Flayer to be illuminated as well. And I'll go through the Mind Flayer's texture. I built him a ambient occlusion volume node, and that's how we got him to be that dark. Now there is different ways to make just a soul, like just black of a material. But let's click our little Mind Flayer here, and we're gonna see this little plus sign at the top here, and we're gonna drag this side over to the side just a little bit, and we're gonna click Shader Editor here. And apparently he's just set to a black principled BSDF, but we don't want that. We wanna go bougie with him. So let's make volume principled volume. We're gonna want a principled volume node, and I'm gonna just plug that right into volume. And we're gonna turn that density way up, and we're gonna turn the color of him way down. So that's a little hidden Easter egg to him, because he's pretty much made out of Mind Flayer particles, which is cool. Alrighty, and to get rid of this panel here, we're just gonna go back to see the plus sign again, and I'm gonna just swipe it on over. Now, next up, we're gonna add in our HDRI lighting. That is to get rid of this gray area up here at the top. So funny enough that I just got rid of that panel. Let's open that panel back up and go back into our shader editor. And I'm gonna click this one here, the word object, and we're gonna switch object to world. Now for our world color, you can go to Blender Kit. They've got a pile of cool HDRIs. The one that worked best for me was this, it's called Murky Green. All right, so I got my Murky Green one in here, but obviously we don't want it green. The upside down is not green, but that's a nice starter for where we want. Now to change the color of it, I'm gonna just go to add in a node by hitting Shift A and searching for color ramp, and that's going to make our green black and white, and you can kind of see some clouds in here already starting to form. So what I'm going to do with this black here is I'm going to just move it in a little bit, and we're going to set it to ease so it gets rid of all of the fudge. And next I'm going to add in a blue color. You just hit add here, and then we're going to click that, and I'm going to drop my color down in there like so. And we're going to move this around just a tiny bit, finick around with the easing, give it just a little bit more darkness to it. So that looks about how I'm wanting it. Next up, we're going to add in more lights. We can really sell the whole in the upside down feel. Now, the same blue that I used for this sky here is what I'm going to set my point lights to. So I'm going to take this and we can just make it that same blue like so. And I'm going to just crank up the brightness on it just a tiny bit. Actually, you know what? We're going to leave it at 10. We're going to leave that at 10. And for this one, I'm going to do the same thing. Add in and finick around with the lights. See if we can make something look cooler than what we had prior. But I think we're stuck with that. All right, so this here, we kind of have a really good start for our compositing for what we want to do for our Blender. So next up, I'm going to take you out of Photoshop here, and we're going to figure out how to do that Stranger Things text. Okay, so now that you guys are in Photoshop, what I'm going to do here is hit the letter T to bring up our text. We're going to add in our text here, and we're going to pull up the title of the song. Okay, so once you have your text of your song added in, what we're going to do here is I'm going to just mess around with the text and get something that looks like the Stranger Things logo. You can look at research for that, look up the actual Stranger Things logo. Okay, now that we have our text in here, I'm going to just hit Control J to duplicate it, and I'm going to set just our M's on the two sides here. Now for this, I'm going to just scale it up a little bit to kind of match that Stranger Things logo, and I'm going to align it with the top. Now that we have our M in here, I'm going to just hit Control J again to duplicate it and align it with this one as well. Now I'm going to hit Control G on these two to group it, and then I'm going to hit Control and click the layer underneath it, which is our main text, and we're going to center it up. So now everything is all centered and ready to go. Now to get that Stranger Things effect, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click our group, and I'm going to add in a stroke. So I'm going to set it to center, and we're going to make it 10, just a little red hue to it, and I'm going to set our fill to 0. And for saving of your eyes, I'm going to make the background black. All right, so you can kind of see the Stranger Things vibe is coming together. So next up, we're going to add in those little rectangular design elements to this here. Create our box. Now this here is using the same effects that we have for our letters, and I'm going to just center everything up once again, and we're going to hit Control J on that. And I'm going to center this bottom line up here with our bottom text. We can get rid of this layer now that we already have it centered. We're going to click our box down here again, and I'm going to just do this. And to get it perfectly centered, I'm going to just create a new box and a new layer. And I'm going to center it up with all of our lines here. So now that it's centered, and we can hit Control D, or you can just hit Control and click the white space here in that layer, and we can just hit delete, and there you go. Now everything's all centered and looking good. So everything is centered, everything is exactly how I want it to be. What we're gonna do now is I'm gonna hit Control J on it to duplicate the group, and then Control E merges the group together, and we're gonna pump our fill back up. And yeah, so now I'm going to double click this. We're going to make our background clear before we do that, because we don't want that black in here. So how you do that is you can just scale it in, and there you go. Now it's clear. And how you get it to merge like that, you just create a new layer and Control E. So now it's only our red layer. So I'm going to hit Shift J or Control J to duplicate the layer again. And I'm going to add in some glow, because the Stranger Things logo it's really glowy. So I'm going to just add in probably a little bit of glow. This one here doesn't need to be too crazy, but 15 glow there. And we're going to set it to color dodge. And I'm going to add in just one more, Control J. And to give it that like ambient kind of flickery old television vibe, I'm going to group our layers together, and I'm going to hit the letter B here for our brush tool. And you can literally just brush in a few lines, and that adds in some more of that like grainy flickery effect just by drawing on a mask. And that just is a little hint of just extra sauce to it. So we have our logo, we have our Stranger Things text. I saw in the actual YouTube video posting of the song, everybody was talking about how did I do that text. So now you know how to do it for your project. I'm gonna hide our bottom layer, and I'm gonna just export it out as a PNG file. And once you have everything exported out, we're gonna bring it into Blender. So I'll show you guys how to do that next. Okay, so now that we're back into Blender here, I'm gonna just hit Shift A, and I'm gonna add in an image. And we want our image to be on a solid mesh plane. We want the mesh to be active. So I'm gonna add in a mesh plane, and how we're gonna do that is I'm gonna just drag in our main text that we had made wherever you had saved it from when you were in Photoshop. We're just gonna add that in right here, and then boom, there we go. We have our text layer added in, and it does look a little small, and we'll worry about the coloring and the glow of it. I'll show you guys how to do that as well. So you can stretch it out by hitting S and X, or X and Z to stretch it out kind of tall. I want it to be tall, more so in your face, but also behind our mind flare. So we're gonna scale him up way big, and you can hit double R to rotate. Again, I'm gonna just rotate it on the Y axis. And then remember what we did with the plus sign here. I'm gonna drag this over, click on our shader editor, and go to emission, plug the base color into emission. Once you crank up the strength, you can see it's really glowing, but that's really glowing. So we want it to be about 8.5, and now you guys can really see the glare, the glow flickering that was from that layer mask from Photoshop. So once you get that added in, you can really just maneuver your text to wherever you feel fits the project best. Something about right in through here, more so like that. I think that really fits what we're going after. And I'm gonna move our mind flare just a little bit more so we can see the text a little better. Can even scale him differently and just finick around with his angle and his rotation, but still keeping that mind flare character to him, because he could look like a big spider, you know, and we don't want a big spider. We want it to be the actual mind flare. Even more so rotated like this, that'll really show off his back legs there in the fog. Awesome. All right, so now that you guys have your scene built, the last step of this is to add in those vines that you see in the upside down on the ground. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Now the way that I do it is I'm gonna go back into our solid viewport. So everything looks a little gray here, and we might not be able to see it because of our fog cubes, but I'm gonna just hide that for now. As you can see here, the little eyedropper there, not eyedropper, but the eyeball. We're gonna click that, and I'm gonna add in our vines. So how I did that is we're gonna click on our dirt layer. So this would be this layer here, our plane. And there's another add-on that I have called Fluid Painter. Fluid Painter, you can literally just paint on anything you like. So I'm gonna just hit add fluid, and that allows me to draw in some fluids. Now this looks very big. We don't want it to be that big. So we're gonna scale down our fluid scale because we want these to be the vines from the show. Probably more around this level of thickness here. And we just want a little bit more of them added in. Probably add in some around the camera. And I'm gonna hit G and Y so we can move these a little closer together. And this here, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's literally organic matter, which organic is all, you know, it's organic. You know, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can draw in as many as you like, as little as you'd like, but for this tutorial's sake, I'm gonna just add in these here. Now, once you get all of this how you're wanting it, I'm even gonna mess around with the smoothness. We're gonna turn that smoothness way down to give it more of that like crinkling kind of effect. And I'm gonna pull our scale down a little bit, just so it doesn't take away from the rest of our scene, because it's kind of supposed to be a little bit of like hidden sauce. It doesn't need to be there, but it's cool to the eye that it is. And the more optimization you do to it, the less smooth and perfect the mesh will be, which is exactly what we want for the vines. So you can kind of see them here, like drawn around the bike. I'm gonna right click and convert that into a mesh, because right now it's a curve. So once you convert it to a mesh, then you'll be able to change the material of it. And for the material of it, I'm going to just hit the plus sign here to add in a new material. And I'm going to do the plus sign again from earlier. And we're going to go into shader editor. And for this one, I want this to be a noise texture. So you just hit Shift A and type in noise texture. That brings up this panel here. You can plug it into the color. And if we look at our little guy here, there's blues, purples, greens even within the white here. My face cam was hiding it, sorry about that. But there's colors there. And if we set it to add in a color ramp, we can really adjust it. And you can see the blacks and the whites now added in. But we want it to be shiny in some areas and rough in some areas. So how to do that is we're going to just scale this up a bunch. That's going to add in a lot more to play with here. So I'm going to pull up our roughness, bring in our detail a little bit, probably around 6, maybe even 7, and I'm going to turn the distortion up a bit. So now you guys can really see the distortion in it. But I'm going to unplug it from the base color, and I'm going to just make it black. So let's add in just a little bit more roughness to them so you can see that it's not just one just static black shiny material. And you can change that roughness by messing around with your color ramp here. And you can see that it adds in these little splotches here. So it's not a consistent, just smooth material. And I'm going to move this back over, and it should leave us with this. So how you render out an image, you're going to want to view it in the viewport, or the shader. Not this is the shader, this is the workspace. Everything's all gray. So how you do it is you just go up here and click render image. So this is what everything will look like when it's all rendered out. Let me show you what to do next on our Blender compositing. All right, so now once you're in Blender, you're gonna hit compositor, and we're gonna hit add new, and I'm gonna add in a glare node here. You can hit Shift A and type in glare, and it'll add it in. Now this looks cool, but this is not what we want. So we're gonna add in a little bit of fog glow. Just adds in a little bit of ambience, just a little bit of. Here's a before and after. That's the before, and this is the after. So that right there is about what we want. And once you see it in your render view here, like so, we're going to hit image, and then we're going to hit save as. My camera's blocking it, so I'm going to try and save as, and just save it to your files. And that's what you're going to bring into Photoshop for color grading and fixing the blurs. Yeah, so I'll meet y'all when I get to Photoshop. What we're going to do here, now that we have our render from Blender, we're going to hit new file and 3000 by 3000, and then we're going to drag in our render that we just completed in Blender. Alrighty, and now that we have our render in here, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the actual render from the actual cover art. Now that we have our image pulled in, this is where we're going to do the Photoshop editing at. So I'm going to iris blur. You can just hit filter, and then blur gallery, and then click iris blur, and that just blurs out just the edges of our image. And I'm gonna make a new layer here and hit Control backspace on it to make everything black. And then what we're gonna do here now is erase the middle of it to give more of like a vignette kind of filter to it. And I'm gonna set it to soft light because we don't really want it to be like too super overpowering. So we can get our logos in. And if you have any logos that you want to add in, by all means, go ahead. The logos, these aren't like my logos, they're the companies that released the song. So I'm gonna just add those big bad boys up in here. And to give it that like overlay kind of effect, how it looks like you could see the blue coming out of it, I'm gonna just group all these together here, Control G, and Control clicking the background layer, and I'm gonna align it with the top, and then Control T, that allows me to move it with everything being centered to this corner. Then what we're gonna do next is I'm going to merge our two layers here together. So I still want to keep these just in case we need to ever change anything. So I'm gonna group it, and then I'm gonna duplicate that group, and then I'm going to hit Control E to merge it. And then you can go to Filter Gallery, and this is where like the hidden sauce is. So once you're in filter gallery, we're gonna have it at 55 and 10, and I'm gonna hit OK on that. Adds in a little more of the grunginess and more contrast into our scene. And I just hit Control J on the logos to kind of expand these out a little bit more. And for this, I'm gonna mask out the grain and leave it something more so like that. Now we can work on this after we're back from Lightroom, but what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take it into Lightroom. This isn't a Lightroom tutorial, but it was used on this project. So you just bring your image into Lightroom and find a preset or build a preset that you like. There's tons of videos on it. But yeah, once I get back from Lightroom, I will show you what that rendered looked like, how to merge them together. Okay, so now that we're back from Lightroom, what I'm gonna do here now is I'm going to double click this layer here, and you can finick around with this by holding Alt and just moving these around. We want to keep majority of that green in, so I'm gonna just leave it like that. And we're gonna mess around with the whites here, just adding in a little bit more of that white there. This should leave you with our final product. If you guys made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you want to see more tutorials. This one we went through a lot, and I knew that it was going to be a longer tutorial, so I kind of packed in a lot of information in. Or if I had missed something out, let me know. If you need help, let me know. Comment below if you have any questions. Stay tuned, because I'm going to be doing this a whole lot more. I just got a new camera, as you can see here, and I'm speaking on a new mic, so I'm probably hopefully going to be taking this more seriously. Excited to go on this journey with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.